There's a scene in Chainsaw Man that I've always believed was the key to understanding Aki Hayakawa's relationship to Himeno, and in particular, the origin of the love that binds them together into such a beautiful friendship. It's part of a series of flashbacks that tell us about how Aki's relationship to Himeno developed over time. So in the beginning, when they first became partners, both of them were traumatized by their experiences with devils, and they were like barely functional as humans. And for this reason, they were a little bit cold and awkward with each other. But then the flashbacks reveal that their partnership develops into a little bit of a friendship. And this friendship has this therapeutic effect where Aki and Himeno both start to take so much pleasure in each other's company that their souls are healed to a certain extent. They're able to help each other cope with their traumas. And there's also a subtle element of romance that begins to develop between them. And the scene that I want to highlight in particular is one of the key moments in the blossoming of this friendship. It's where Aki Hayakawa really declares how much he cares about Himeno for the first time in his own special way. What happens is this. One day Himeno is just standing in the streets of Tokyo waiting to meet up with Aki when a woman approaches her from out of the crowd and slaps her in the face. And it just so happened that Aki was arriving at the scene exactly when all of this was going down, and so he sees everything and he's shocked. And Himeno explains to Aki that this woman was the girlfriend of one of Himeno's dead partners, and she blames Himeno for his death, which is obviously absurd because it was a devil who killed the partner. But this woman nevertheless resents Himeno and feels that Himeno is the one who pushed him to his death. And Himeno just kind of accepts this woman's resentment with a certain amount of resignation. And even though she laughs it off as an occupational hazard of being a devil hunter with public safety, it's pretty clear that deep down, Himeno kind of doesn't blame the woman because she herself feels the burden of guilt and responsibility. But when Aki has finally taken in the whole situation and understood Himeno's perspective on it, he suddenly gets very angry and he does something very petty. He sneaks up on the woman who just slapped Himeno and he secretly puts a piece of chewing gum in her clothes. And then he returns and he tells Himeno that she really shouldn't take that kind of crap. And Aki's response to this whole situation simultaneously shocks and delights Himeno. When she realizes what Aki has just done, she gasps and then she laughs. And I think that Himeno's laughter comes from the joyful recognition at realizing how much she actually matters to Aki. Because I think that this was the first time that Aki really expressed how much he cares about her. And Himeno is overjoyed to realize that she is loved by this person that she herself has grown to love so much. But the thing that I find most fascinating in this entire scene is the question of what's going through Aki's mind when he comes to Himeno's defense. Because I think seeing Himeno get blamed for her partner's death called up a little bit of Aki's childhood trauma. And I think that Aki was doing some therapy on himself just as much as anybody else when he got revenge on that woman who slapped Himeno by putting chewing gum in her clothes. Because you've got to remember that Aki's origin story as a devil hunter also has to do with a situation where he was indirectly responsible for the death of somebody that was very close to him. In this case, it was his younger brother when they were kids. The two of them were playing in the snow one day when Aki noticed that his younger brother wasn't wearing any gloves. So Aki sent him into the house to go get some because he didn't want to be held responsible if his younger brother came down with a cold. But then the second that his brother obeyed him and stepped inside, something terrible happened, which is that the entire house was suddenly completely obliterated in a random act of senseless violence that had been perpetuated by the gun devil. And Aki's brother died instantly. And this tragedy always haunted Aki, and it filled him with a lifelong sense of responsibility and remorse over his brother's death. Because even though the gun devil is the one who leveled the house, it was Aki who caused his brother to be there when it happened. And this produced a sense of guilt that would go on to define Aki's entire personality. It's the reason why he joined public safety. It's the reason why he's kind of an asshole all the time. And it's the reason why deep down he's also kind of a compassionate softie. All of these traits are responses or coping mechanisms that Aki uses to deal with his guilt over the death of his brother. And all of this is also the reason why Aki got so emotional when he saw Himeno get slapped by that random woman. And as Aki could see, it was not only the case that Himeno was being blamed for her partner's death, Himeno was also ready to blame herself in just the same way that Aki had always blamed himself for the death of his younger brother. That was simply unacceptable to Aki Hayakawa, and it's the reason why he took revenge on the woman that slapped Himeno by sticking chewing gum in her clothes. He did it for his own sake, no less than for the sake of Himeno. Because in that very moment, Aki Hayakawa could see that he and Himeno are exactly the same. They share the same trauma, they feel the same guilt, they fight the same battle, and that was why Aki had to act. Because now Aki Hayakawa could finally understand the reason why he and Himeno took so much comfort in each other's presence, and why each had the power to free the other from the grief that had up to this point devoured so much of their lives. It was because they were exactly the same. They were the same because they both had wrongly assumed responsibility for the sins that the devils had perpetuated upon their friends and family, so that Aki Hayakawa could finally heal himself by healing Himeno, in whom he saw not only himself but also, and as if for the first time, a person whom he could love.